Hey, I'm Chris, and welcome to Watch Club, the show where we break down the biggest shows in TV and tell you what's what about them, tell you things you might have missed, if they're good, if they're bad, etc. Today we're doing Cloak and Dagger. I'm joined by Mariam.
Hi, I'm Mariam.
Mariam, you're a big TV fan, and what else do you do here at Watch Mojo?
I run Junior Mojo, the children's channel. So if you have any kids out there, take a look.
That's right. I mean, I like the videos too. You don't have to be a kid. Don't pigeonhole me. But hey, look, we've done this series with Westworld. It's still going on with Westworld. We did it with Legion. Now we're doing Cloak and Dagger. Why are we doing Cloak and Dagger?
It's what the people want. That's what they asked for.
It's what the people wanted. That's right. We put a poll on our community tab, and thousands upon thousands of people voted overwhelmingly. They want to see Cloak and Dagger on here. So that's what we're doing. We're playing catch up a little bit since we're 4 episodes in. We wanted to do this show. We didn't know if it was going to be a thing or not, but based on feedback,
it's a thing.
It's a thing, yeah. The ratings are good. People are talking about it. We like the show.
Yeah, totally.
Here's what we're going to do with the episode. The first part of this episode here will be
non-spoilers. No spoilers.
Spoiler free. We'll try to answer the question, should you watch it? So if you haven't seen it, maybe this will get you into it. In the second part of the episode, then we're going into spoiler territory.
Totally spoilers.
Yeah.
So be careful.
We'll talk about our favorite stuff and stuff we didn't like from the first 4 episodes as quick as we can.
Yes.
All right, let's get into it. First of all, this show. How would you describe this show? I would say that it's a superhero show with a difference. It's the superheroes who are young people discovering their powers in New Orleans while maybe falling in love with each other, and they come from 2 very different backgrounds. It's on Freeform, and so that brings certain genre expectations. I know that you're a big fan of teen drama, and this kind of falls into that category.
Yeah, totally.
Does it, or does it?
It does. It's like it has a handheld effect. It tries to be a little gritty, which is kind of fun. It's not stylized, but what has the kind of feeling of a teen drama is it's kind of a coming of age story. These kids are dealing with school pressures, with family pressures, with kind of life, and they're also kind of discovering more about themselves. So that kind of falls into that teen drama kind of category of a coming of age story. So it does fall into those kind of tropes for the teen drama.
And I feel like the teen drama tropes are things that up to now have been really skipped over in the Marvel cinematic and television universe, considering that that is the whole original appeal of mutants, right? It's like they're growing up. It's like as they become teenagers, they discover more about themselves. They have these powers. It's a big metaphor for growing up.
Totally.
But that said, you don't really need to know a lot about the Marvel world, the Marvel universe for the show, right?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm a little bit familiar with Marvel movies and the Marvel kind of MCU, but I am not a super fan. I don't know a lot about the history. I don't know a lot about the comics, and I still enjoy the show. And I don't feel like I'm missing any pieces.
Nice.
So yeah.
And I know a little bit about all that stuff, and I can. In fact, as we go along, I'll point out little things that are from the comics. So if you're a comics fan, there are little things in there for you to latch onto, little Easter eggs and stuff. Now, if we're talking about should you watch it, here are some good things I think about the show. One, it has strong leads. The actors are pretty good. The characters are compelling. They feel like they have a lot of contradictions within themselves, and a lot of they're opposites in a really interesting ways.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting setting as well. New Orleans, we haven't seen it in many shows, never in superhero shows, I don't believe. So those are some good things. What do you like about it?
Yeah, I mean, I love that it's set in New Orleans because I think that Louisiana, especially New Orleans, has such an interesting history. It's so rich, and they really play on that in the show, so that's a lot of fun. I love the social issues that get addressed in the show, and they really kind of, as it progresses, they become a little bit more explicit with them. They really kind of delve into them. So I think that is something that I often look for when I'm watching a show, and so I really love that they're dealing with that. And also there's a lot of mystery. I think we both found that it really unravels the story kind of slowly, and you kind of take in pieces of it, and they're not telling you things right away, and you get to kind of discover it. So that's fun.
Yeah, I agree. It's a really inviting level of mystery in the first couple episodes. The pilot especially, I think. and I think overall the show knows that superhero isn't a genre.
Yeah.
You know, they have to do more than just have powers, which, you know, the best superhero movies, I think almost all of them since, you know, in the last few years have known that too. Now, it's not a perfect show.
No.
It is not. At times,
But no show is.
That's right. No show is. In particular, I find sometimes the dialogue is clunky and mechanical. They don't always sound like 18-year-olds talking to each other. So it's a bit uneven, but not. It's not so bad. Sometimes one thing that bothers me is sometimes they fall into like the TV fake things of stuff like violence, like intense violence, just being casual. Like, I don't think this is a spoiler to say that, or no, here, this is how I'll say it. One of the characters gets beat up at one point, like knocked unconscious, and it's never addressed that he has a concussion, which I guess he doesn't, even though if he did, that would be a big plot thing.
I think it would be important.
And in real life, if like your peers beat you up, that's something you deal with. They just don't. It's just like a second act plot point.
Yeah, and it's gone.
And it's gone. So stuff like that worries me. Anything that worries you?
The one thing that I kind of latched onto right from the beginning is I love seeing women in superhero kind of roles, and I love seeing them in those kind of movies. But there's something problematic often with them. Either they're hypersexualized or they're just like a side character or whatever. And so I'm usually hyper aware of that. So when I was watching this with Tandy, I sometimes think she's falling into a little bit of a cliche of the kind of damaged teenage girl. So some of the things that she turns to, whether it's like sex or drugs, I kind of find that it's a little bit too easy. And they're both kind of damaged teens. They're both dealing with stuff. And I think that with her character, I think they could have explored her a little bit more and a little bit differently. So I'm a little bit worried about her.
Yeah, that kind of ties into what I was saying too. It's like big things like violence and sex and drugs can be a bit casual and be used as like, you know, flavoring.
Yeah.
Well, but overall, do you recommend the show? Are you excited to watch it, not just, you know, because you have to?
Oh, yeah. Overall, I am excited to watch the whole thing. I'm ready for it. I'm ready. What about you?
I can see it going sideways, and veering into territory that just doesn't interest me. Maybe I'm too old for that. But for now, I'm totally in, and I recommend it to people.
Yeah.
So we're out of the spoiler-free zone into the spoiler zone. We're going to talk about specific stuff from the episodes. If you haven't seen them, I recommend seeing them and then coming back. First episode, what are some of your favorite moments or things that stood out or things you think people might have missed?
Yeah, so as you can see, Cloak and Dagger, they have their roles in this. And so for Tyrone, he can cloak himself and appear somewhere else, but he's not quite sure how that works yet, and he's still discovering it. And so in the first episode, he wakes up on a roof somewhere after he's cloaked himself, kind of inadvertently.
In blankets.
In blankets. So. And they don't really explain it, and they don't kind of go into it. So that stood out as a moment to me where I was like, okay, I feel like he knows as much as I do. He doesn't know what's going on either. He doesn't know how he got there or what happened. So that stood out. That was kind of fun. I liked that. I liked it, and it kind of added to that whole mystery part of like we're discovering it as they're discovering.
Yeah, and it's a strong visual. Like everyone has probably like imagined going to sleep one place and waking up somewhere else. It's really, and if anyone sleepwalks like I have before, it's really disorienting to wake up somewhere else, let alone on a rooftop. So I thought that was. I also thought that was a strongest moment. One of the strongest moments. The first episode, I thought overall, they were also trying to be kind of poetic in their visuals, which I really liked. The very last visual of the episode, I believe, was in flashback. They're reaching through the water, young Tyrone and young Tandy, and it's a dark and light coming together. I thought that was a beautiful scene and made me think, like, yep, this show is going to be something. I'm excited. I'm excited for the rest of it. That was a really good pilot.
It's going there.
Yep.
It's going there.
Second episode, we get into that, introduces us to a character named Bridget O'Reilly. Bridget O'Reilly, although I'm not sure if we hear her first name or if I'm just taking that from the comics, but
Yeah, I
Detective
don't remember.
O'Reilly.
Detective O'Reilly, yes.
From New York. They introduce her with a lot of mystery. I think that the show goes maybe a bit too far out of its way to have her not talk and just do everything with actions. Like, in a way, that's good writing. Like, you should be able to show everything through actions and shouldn't have to, have a character tell you what they're doing. But at a certain point, it becomes, a bit forced and unreal.
A little comical.
Yeah, a little bit comical. But here's the thing with Bridget O'Reilly that you may not know, is that in the Marvel universe, in the comics, she becomes, she starts out as a detective from New York who, just like she does in the show here, helps out Cloak and Dagger, is, sympathetic to them, helps them out, but then an accident at the Roxxon Corporation and Cloak and Dagger's intervention with their powers transform her into like a mutant.
Ooh.
Yeah, it mutates her into a character called Mayhem, who's like, she turns green, she's like part gas, she has powers to make people tell the truth, and becomes kind of like a vigilante like Cloak and Dagger are in the comics.
Interesting.
So I don't know, maybe we'll see.
Do you think that they're going to explore that in this show?
Well, I think that Roxxon is in play. Roxxon is...
Yeah, definitely.
They do crazy stuff. She's already like, a cop, but is kind of an outsider of a cop because she's from New York, but in New Orleans.
Yeah. And they try to make it look like she's different from the rest of them.
Exactly.
She's not part of the old boys club, and they're a little bit,
Yep, so I think we may see her go down that route.
Okay, cool. Interesting. Yeah, my standout moment was we kind of discover that they don't just cloak and dagger, but they also have kind of the abilities to see into somebody else's life. But basically, Tandy can see someone's hopes and dreams, and Tyrone can see someone's fears. And so he touches his mom, and at one point he sees his mother's fear because Tyrone's brother dies in the pilot episode, and we get to see that he's killed by a police officer, and so in her biggest fear is that she loses both of her sons. And I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. Yeah, it really struck me. It was such a powerful moment, and it because it touches so much with issues now, like issues that have been forever. But young black men and being killed by police officers, and how black parents have to deal with that.
Yep,
so I think it was really a big moment, I thought.
To its credit, it's something that the show doesn't shy away from. My one issue with that is that we already know this about her. To see it was more of a moment for Tyrone where we, learn where he experiences his powers accidentally. But we already know that she's afraid of losing him. She said so very directly in the first episode.
That's true. That is true. But there was something powerful about seeing it, and maybe it was a moment to show us what he can do, and that we kind of already know that that's her fear, and so it kind of puts it together for us. But there's something about the imagery of it that I just thought was really powerful. It stuck with me. So I think that's what we liked so much about the first 3 episodes, was that there wasn't a lot of exposition, there wasn't a lot of explaining, and it was very show, not tell. And then this episode, they kind of like sat in a church and hashed it all out.
Exactly.
So it kind of undercut a little bit of what we liked about it. I thought there were some really nice moments in there, though. Like when they talk about privilege, they have this whole conversation where she feels like, listen, I'm dealing with losing my dad. We've lost kind of financially, where our socioeconomic class has changed, and so she's feeling like she's the one who has it a little bit harder. And he's like, well, listen, I can't. The quote that stood out to me was, I think it was, "This country is trying to kill me."
This whole country's trying to kill me every day.
And I thought that was a great moment because it really kind of showed what they were both dealing with. And I think the competition of who has it worse is never a good competition to have. But I think
it happens in real life.
But it happens in real life, and I think what I liked about it was that it was a very honest conversation.
And it will happen in the comment section.
Okay,
anyway,
exactly. Who has it worse? No, we don't want that. But I think what's cool about it is that these 2 kids, and that's part of the teen drama, is kind of realizing their situation and coming of age and seeing what the world has for them and what the world doesn't have for them. And so I thought it was a very kind of honest conversation, and I really appreciated that about the show, and it really fits into that teen drama. The moment I absolutely loved about this episode, and it really took me by surprise, is the moment when Tandy, at the end of episode 4, is kind of chaining herself up to jump off of the bridge. And it was after she had a fight with Tyrone, and she's leaving, and I just kind of rolled my eyes, because right after the fight, she went and she kind of snorted some drugs, and I thought, oh, this character is such a cliche. I wish they could explore a woman who's dealing with these issues a little differently. And it just seems like they're throwing everything at her, and I thought, okay, now she's gonna take her own life, or she's gonna try, and maybe someone's gonna have to save her, and I thought I would just kind of rolled my eyes. I thought, don't really like where this character is going. And then, triumphantly, she kind of jumps out of the water with her dagger in her hands, and I kind of thought that was super cool.
That's
and
right.
Yeah, it was a great moment.
She was training herself. She wasn't killing herself.
She wasn't killing herself, and she was just kind of like working with her powers and figuring it out. And it kind of made me think, okay, maybe I'm gonna like Tandy. Maybe I'm changing my mind about her, but I loved that moment. It was really cool.
I know that the her drug use bothers you a little bit, because you feel like that's kind of a cliche. I was thinking about the drugs in the show, and compared to the original source material, right? So these characters were created in like 1982, 83, which I'm no history buff, but to me that's like Reagan era. That's like the war on drugs had just started. That's like Just Say No. That's very much like what's happening in society. And these characters they're created from like a drug experiment gone wrong. And their stated purpose is to take revenge on all drug dealers. Like all their most of their adventures have to do with like destroying drug fields and taking down drug gangs.
Oh, so interesting.
Yeah, and so that's how they were created. But now, that would be very like uncool, right? Like I think society.
It's a different time.
We're in a different era with our attitudes towards drugs. With like insane levels of incarceration because of drugs, etc. We really are starting to see things differently. And so instead, who are the enemies here? It's corrupt police officers and like corrupt evil mega corporations, which feels very much more like 2018.
Very present, And I think also the thing about, I don't know exactly what drugs she's using, but it looks like, are they prescriptions?
Yeah.
So I think that's an interesting twist, at least, is that she's, when we talk about drug use and what's good for you, what's bad for you, it's like there's so much on the illegal drugs, right? Like
she's self-medicating.
And she's self-medicating, and I think that's an interesting twist, is like how damaging prescription drugs can be. So I think that's an interesting conversation, at least.
All right, so those are some of the standout moments that we thought from the first 4 episodes. Looking forward, which we like to do here, and highlight unanswered questions, may make some predictions. What do you think is going on? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, so the biggest question I have is when Tyrone goes into the police station at the end, he had already expressed some discomfort in going to a police station, so I was kind of thinking it was maybe about the bike, but he asked for O'Reilly, and I'm wondering why. And I haven't pieced it together. I don't know. I'm really curious to see where that goes. Yeah,
I wonder too. I think he might be going to tell her about the crooked cop that, the scar that he's after. I don't know. One thing that stands out as like something unanswered in my mind is how voodoo will tie in. Beth's auntie there, who had the 3D printed voodoo doll of Tyrone, it seems. That seems kind of ominous. I don't know if they're going to be a force for good or bad.
And they definitely went through the process of telling you about the history of voodoo, so it's going to come back.
Oh, yeah.
It has to come back.
And I think that's cool because, in the original comics, there is a lot of magic. It's not voodoo because it's not New Orleans, but it's like more Orientalism.
Okay.
There was
good.
in that era. But speaking of good or bad, Father Delgado, who seems to be like the guidance counselor and priest at Tyrone's school, we had that scene where he was we just see him buying liquor. And we don't know much more about him.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that in the comics, he started out, I might be getting this a bit crooked here, but he started out as like, a benevolent figure, helping Cloak and Dagger. But then at some point he turned crazy and became like murderous.
Okay.
Yeah. So we may see him be a source of trouble.
Who knows? And then the last question is, Greg, Tandy's mom's boyfriend, is killed at the end. And he was looking into Roxanne, so he was trying to figure out what's going on, and you didn't really know where he stood on things, and clearly he was trying to help them, and now he's gone.
Yeah. So, yeah, what'll happen with Roxanne? What'll happen with Tyrone and Tandy? Will they fall in love? All those things and more on the next Watch Club. Guys, we'll be doing this every Friday morning, or every Friday, I should say. Check us out. Keep watching the show. You can like, follow, subscribe, etc.
Let us know what you think.
That's right. And we will see you next time. Thanks, Mariam.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Check out these other great clips from WatchMojo and subscribe for new videos every day.